Okay, welcome everybody to Florida 2020, a candid conversation presented by the Tampa Bay Times. My name is Amy Hollyfield. I'm the Senior Deputy Editor for News, and I'm super happy to see all of you here. I'm going to start with some introductions, and then we'll get right started. I'll start with Steve Contorno, who is our political editor. He's been at the Times for 6 years, started as a PolitiFact writer, covered Hillsborough County, came back and covered the 2018 election with us, and now he's our political editor. Before that, he worked in Washington at the Washington Examiner and also in Wisconsin and Illinois covering government. So he's got a great perspective on politics across the country and is the perfect person to lead us in this conversation. So I will turn it over to him.
Thank you. Wow. This is a great crowd. Awesome. I'm so glad we got such a good turnout for this. This is a really unique opportunity because I just found out that Senator Gruters and Terrie Rizzo have actually never done this together before. This is first time actually. They only met for the first time 2 weeks ago. So I'm really excited to have this conversation, and really I'm sort of new to the job, but I'm really excited to be leading our politics coverage through the next year. Florida is an important state. It's a divided state. It's a diverse state. It's sometimes a crazy state. And, we look at us for, we know you guys look at us for some really important coverage of this election. One thing I do want to sort of plug before we get started, in addition to all the coverage you'll find on our website, you can also subscribe to our newsletter, which comes out once a week. Me and the rest of our political team round up all the biggest stories in Florida politics, and we put together a great little roundup with a lot of good insights. It comes to you every Thursday morning, so if you sign up tonight, you'll get it tomorrow by the time you wake up. It's tampabay.com/newsletters, and there's a couple cards in the back promoting it if you want to grab one on your way out. But let's get started. I want to introduce to my right, which is apropos, is the Republican Party of Florida Chairman, Joe Gruters. He is a state senator representing Sarasota and Charlotte counties, correct? And before that, he was in the state House Representatives, and I found out he's also apparently a scuba diver. So, and then further down the line is Terrie Rizzo. She is the chairwoman of the Florida Democratic Party. She has been in that job since December 2017, correct? And she actually got her start as a volunteer working on John Kerry's campaign and sort of worked her way up through Palm Beach County politics, and now is leading the Democratic Party their big effort in 2020. So let's first thank and welcome our guests for being here. I'd like to sort of just jump into the news of the day, which was we had an election last night. The results are very interesting. We saw a governor in a Republican state that Donald Trump won by 30 points lose. We saw Virginia, which has been a swing state, both its state and House, state Senate and state House were flipped. So what, if anything, do you think this says about the political winds as we head into 2020? We'll start with you, Senator.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks for the invitation, and it's great to be next to the chairwoman of the Florida Democrats at this event. Well, you can look at it a lot of different ways. First, let's take individual states. So go to Kentucky, right? What that race proves is just, it doesn't matter where you go across this country, candidates matter. And the Republican governor that was defeated last night, he had the lowest approval rating in the entire country, 34%. We actually outperformed as a party in Kentucky. We won 5 out of 6 races. We won the Attorney General race, the first ever African-American ever elected to the Attorney General in that race. But 5 out of 6 of those races, we won by an average of 15%. Overperformed. He was at 34%, ended up almost at 50%. So I think the president really helped him there at the end of the day, and certainly propelled our other candidates. And we will win Kentucky in 2020, both at the president's level and with Senator McConnell. If you go to Virginia, that's an interesting state because if you look at the demographics, it's been trending Democrat since 2004. What's happened is the Beltway is getting a bit larger and larger, and you have a lot more of the swamp coming into Virginia, and as a result, that state is no surprise. We lost those. We lost some of those last seats, and so for us it was not a real surprise. But we look forward to continuing to build our majorities in the states where we're doing well. Mississippi was obviously another great state for us yesterday, but Kentucky ended up being a great state because it showed the power of the president and what he could do, even with candidates who were really below par. And so for us, not a terrible day.
I'll let Chairwoman Rizzo respond.
Well, thank you, Steve. And first of all, again, thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity. And hello, St. Pete. How are you tonight? Great to see you. And Chairman Gruters, that was awesome. What a great spin. I think blue is in the air. And the results, I think, show it, and it shows that candidates do matter, and you're entirely correct. And actually, we had a major candidate who had come in the day before and had a major rally, and we had a Democratic governor elected, even despite that. Candidates run on the issues. The issues mattered in the state of Kentucky. The candidate who won, Steve Beshears, who's our Democratic candidate, ran particularly on health care. We know that is a major issue. It is a major issue nationally. It's a major, and locally, and particularly in the state of Florida as well. In Virginia, he's right. It's been trending Democrat, and the Democrats came out in force because there's motivation, terrific motivation across the country when candidates run on our democratic values, when they stand up for what we believe, and the voters are responded. So we saw a wave last night, the beginning of a blue wave.
And to respond a little bit, Senator Gruters, as Chairwoman said, Donald Trump did come into the state. He said, you got to vote because if you don't, it'll send a message. So,
well, you're looking at a governor with an approval rating of 34%, literally the worst approval rating out of any governor in the entire country. 34%. Donald Trump came in, our president, almost got him over the edge. And if there's anybody that could have done it, it was the president. The other 5 races that we won, including flipping 1 blue seat red, the Attorney General's race, we won by an average of 15 points. So it shows you that in Kentucky we're still strong, but at the end of the day, like I said, candidates do matter. He was a bad candidate, and as a result, we didn't win that one, but the president did make a huge difference.
And Chairwoman, there was quite a bit of wave that we saw in 2018 where the results that we saw around the country, where state houses were flipped and congressional seats were flipped, didn't materialize into the wins that Democrats thought they would here. So is the difference between what's going on in Kentucky really applicable to what's going to happen next year in Florida?
Well, the wave enthusiasm certainly is. And last year in 2018, we actually had tremendous turnout. We had a tremendous election up and down and did any number of things. But, of course, the final big seats, we ended up coming up just a little short. And we're making changes in order to accommodate that. This is not 2018. This is 2019. And in 2019, we're preparing. And we're preparing earlier than we've ever done before. Way before the election. We started organizing right after the elections was over and coming into this year, and we're seeing the results already. With our tremendous enthusiasm is here on the ground in Florida, as it was in Kentucky, as it was in Virginia, and even in Mississippi. Now, in Mississippi, the Republican candidate did win, but at a substantially less percentage than Donald Trump won in 2016. So even there, the gap is closing, and we're seeing the wave of enthusiasm. And that's what we're seeing here in the state of Florida. So this is not 2018. This is 2019 going into 2020, and we're preparing.
The enthusiasm you're seeing in Florida is all amongst our base because people are tired of the Democrats, what the swamp is doing, what Washington, D.C. is doing with this impeachment inquiry, the one scandal after the next, this coup that they're trying to push. And what you've seen is our base, 95% of the base supports the President of the United States. And what it's done, what all these things have done, listen, it doesn't matter if it was Russia, Mueller, fill in the blank after the fact. We win on issues. We win because we have the best candidates. And as a result, it's our base is more energized. We have more volunteers now. We have more staffers on the ground we've ever had. And this is the real telling issue in the 2020 cycle. The Democrats are divided. You guys have 20 candidates. You guys want, the Democrats want to give free health care for illegals, free college for illegals, They want to do everything they can except for helping the American people. Think about the economy and how well we're doing. We are on fire as a base and as a party, and the working class Americans out there are going to respond in full force in 2020, and we're going to win big.
Well, can I answer?
Sure, go ahead.
We know where the swamp is.
Well, you mentioned the issues, and let's talk about one of the issues that seemed to get a lot of play in Kentucky, and that was health care. You had a governor who pulled back on the Medicaid expansion there. Florida has gone back and forth on Medicaid expansion, but has never passed it, and you've seen Republicans support it and pull back as well. Are you fearful that health care debate that we've had in 2018 and in Kentucky last night is going to hurt Republicans in 2020?
Absolutely. And we know, and you want to answer? Go ahead. Well, we know, if you're asking me on this, absolutely, this is the number one issue in the state of Florida is health care, as it is nationally. Donald Trump and the Republicans have spent the past 4 years trying to dismantle the ACA. They are doing everything they can, without a plan to replace it, I might add, to take away health care plans for millions of Americans. If they are successful in completely dismantling the ACA, there are all provisions for pre-existing conditions. There will be no guarantee for people who have pre-existing conditions. How many of you in this room have a pre-existing condition? That's why health care is the number one issue, one of the reasons health care is the number one issue in the state of Florida. And I could go on and on in terms of what is being done to dismantle health care and not expand Medicaid.
Well, I would say that the President of the United States and others, especially here in Florida, have said that the protection of the pre-existing conditions is going to remain in place no matter what happens. And it's the Democrats' lack of effort and lack of work that's dismantling ACA because it's the expense and everything else. And if you would stop wanting to give free health care to illegals, maybe we can provide better health care to everybody.
That is a myth.
We do have representatives from PolitiFact, our friends here in the room, so I'm sure they're taking all this down and we'll be fact-checking it later.
Out.
Fact check. All the Democrats on the entire stage, every Democrat candidate said they want to give free health care to illegals. That's them saying. That's what they said in the debate. It wasn't me saying it. They raised their hands, every single one of them, free health care for illegals. Before we give a single free health care to illegals, let's focus on the Americans, the working class Americans, and do what's right for the American people.
Well, let's talk about one of the areas where we saw this election last night and where we saw 2018 fought, and that was in the suburbs. That seemed to be where the major shift is going. Do you agree with that that's where 2020 is going to be fought, or do you have other thoughts on that, Senator?
Well, I'll say that our internal polling here in Florida shows us leading. And I think what you're seeing is look at it. The President of the United States moved here, announced his new residency requirement last week. Look at the Morning Joe. Both Joe Scarborough and his girlfriend both moved here and voted in Florida in 2018, fleeing the high-tax states of New York. And they're fleeing these high-tax liberal states to come not only for the sunshine and low taxes, but the conservative environment that we've created over the last couple of decades of good Republican, solid conservative leadership.
I was quoted, my quote was, Donald Trump is not the first person to come to Florida to retire. That's my county in Palm Beach County where he's going to retire. And
after 4 more years.
He's going to retire sooner than that. But in response to that, in response to the enthusiasm factor, and
in the suburbs particularly, do you think that's where 2020 is going to be fought?
I think the results last night showed that. Some of the major shifts in the election that we saw, both in Kentucky and in Virginia, the shifts were in the suburbs. And your internal polling apart, and I'm sure that's what your polling shows, our indications are that we are gaining in key voters, particularly people in the suburbs for whom those kinds of issues matter.
So this next upcoming election is going to be the 20-year mark of Bush v. Gore, which was a race that was decided by 537 votes. Last year, statewide election, we had several recounts. In between those elections, we added 6 million people to the state. How is it possible that in a state that has seen its voter population change so much, that elections here are still so close?
Florida really reflects the entire country. It is amazing. And I will tell you that just from a voter registration standpoint, go back to 2016, where Democrats had about a 548,000 voter registration advantage. Today, it's all the way down to 241,000. Republicans have made huge gains in voter registration, even though the Democrats have lots of efforts out there to increase their voter registration. On top of that, we've won 20, I think, out of the last 35 months in terms of the voter registration battle. And in voters, listen, I think our secret weapon in 2020 is the most popular governor in America, Governor Ron DeSantis. The job that he's done over the last 10 months has been nothing short of unbelievable. And he has a 75% approval rating across the demographics. And I really do think that, listen, I don't think he would have won without the support of the president early on. And now I actually think Ron DeSantis will help carry Florida for the president. It's going to be close. All these races, well, we only have one real race in Florida. That's the president's race. And that race is going to go, I think it will go down to the wire. I think it's going to be a hard-fought battle. But the difference for us is Ron DeSantis, his ability to connect with voters. And at the end of the day, Republicans and Democrats, you run as a team. And what we've been able to do over the last couple of decades here in Florida is prove that conservative leadership does matter. It does work. We have made a difference here in Florida. And Ron DeSantis, unlike anybody else, 75% approval rating across the board. It really is a model that all of us can get behind. And he's going to lead us to victory for sure, to make sure that we deliver Florida's 29 electoral votes for the president.
Chairwoman Rizzo?
Ron DeSantis is not on the ballot this year. Donald Trump is. And with regard to voter registration, and you're right, and this is something that we are doing differently. Democrats have not made substantial efforts in voter registration over the past numbers of years, and that's one of the lessons that we've learned and what we're doing differently. We've started massive voter registration efforts statewide starting last spring. Since the ramp up in June, and we're on trajectory, we have outgained the Republicans in voter registration for 4 months in a row since our ramp up. And it's continuing.
We're still winning for the year. We're still winning for the year.
But the year isn't over.
Yeah.
And we've got next year to go. So that's going to make a difference. And in what I think what you failed to say is, while our edge has gone down, the majority of people are registering not with you, but with the NPAs. So we're gearing back up to register.
But we're still beating the Democrats. So I think by 15,000 net this year.
But we will pass you. Trust me. We're on our trajectory, and we're ramping up these efforts with massive efforts statewide. There are numbers of efforts that we've done. We're investing over $3 million this year alone on voter registration and other outreach efforts.
The Democrats are in big trouble because our governor, Ron DeSantis, has just started an effort, and we have a lot of people working organically. These guys have had paid people out there in third-party groups, left-wing groups from out of state coming in. We've been winning organically, but now, just get ready. We are about to go into hyperdrive because Ron DeSantis has just outlined like a $3 to $4 million project, and we will cut that difference. We may eliminate the voter registration difference all the way before the election of next year.
What's happening also, and what I completely failed to mention, you're talking about the paid canvassers and the paid organizers, that's only one small part of what we're doing. We have county parties, such as some of the folks in Pinellas County and Hillsborough County and county parties across the state who are actively involved in doing this. As I said, this has not been an emphasis of the Democratic Party in the past numbers of years. It is now, and the results are showing.
How do you get that message across to Democrats who, watched close losses over and over and over again? What were the failures of the Democratic Party that doesn't seem like you can win statewide elections?
Well, in actual fact, again, we've done an analysis and learned from the things in the past. And that's one of the things that we're changing. Voter registration is one of them, keying in on voter registration. Getting out and organizing early. In the past, we've not been able to do that. This year, we started way in advance. We've never had organization this early in advance and without a nominee, I might add. So the party is carrying the bulk in order to develop the infrastructure to be ready for when we have the nominee comes in. We're building organizers on the ground, and we have actually a number of programs that we've done, including building our own homegrown organizers through Organizing Corps, organizing on college campuses, organizing in various counties around the state, and developing the 67 county strategy. So those are all things that are different than what we've done before. We've also done, and I'll just add one more thing, outreach in many different ways, and I'll go into that in a little later.
Democrats have 20 candidates. They've gone so far to the left, or they've left the mainstream American public out there, where the Republicans are united behind a single candidate, the President of the United States, who just here in Florida, just since he was elected, 500,000 new jobs, 20,000 new manufacturing jobs. Our economy is humming. We're doing great, and that's what's going to lead us to victory.
On the economy, a lot of the indicators that often predict whether or not a president will be reelected, currently, we don't know how things are going to look in a year, but currently seem to suggest are favorable to the president. So how do you get a message across during a time of low unemployment and job reports that are showing, that we're still adding jobs to this economy? Well,
yeah, unemployment is low, but that's because many people are working 2 and 3 jobs in order to make ends meet. Especially here in Florida, where we have a predominantly service economy, many of these are low-paying jobs. So these are all significant. Most people, the average person, is not seeing a difference in his or her pocketbook. Most people, the economy is not doing well. It is for the top level of people, for the top percent, but for the most people, what I'm hearing on the ground and what we hear every day, and what we hear around the state of Florida, and what we hear even around the nation. The economy may be doing well for a few. It ain't doing well for me.
The average wages have gone up $2,500 per individual, and maybe it's $4,500 per individual across the country. It is a huge difference. For the first time, you have companies trying to go out there trying to find people. We can't find people. There's all these hundreds of thousands of jobs out there that are being unfulfilled because of the incredible environment here in Florida. In the economy, they have no answer. The Democrats have no answer and have no response to how great the economy is. And that's why they're so focused on the impeachment and these other wannabe scandals, because they know they can't win based on the issues. You could thank President Obama for that.
Oh no!
Let's talk about impeachment, because it is going to be an issue in 2020. It looks like we're headed towards some sort of vote. I want to read something that to you, Senator Gruters, that Representative Francis Rooney said about President Trump's dealings with Ukraine. He said, "The issue of using the power and prestige of our country to bring pressure on a foreign government to deal with political activities is bothersome to me, and it's a big deal." That's a Republican congressman who said that. And so, Senator Gruters, do you agree with this statement?
Well, if you see, when the impeachment vote happened last week, he did not vote with the Democrats. He voted with us, because
but he remains open to the idea of impeachment.
He did not vote to continue it. It was bipartisan. We had Democrats voting on our side. There was not a single Republican that voted for this impeachment inquiry, because you got to think about what the whole deal is about. First it started with Russia, then Mueller, now it's this Ukrainian thing. They can't win on the issues, so they have to try to, and listen, Congressman Al Green said it best. If we don't impeach him, Donald Trump's going to win re-election. That's what this is all about. They're divided, they can't win on issues. This is about trying to undermine a sitting U.S. president, and this happened before he was ever sworn in. They started going after him. He's never had a single day to actually be our president. Look at how great America is doing as a result of his leadership. It is amazing. And think if he didn't have to deal with all these issues, he could focus on running the country. The president deserves the respect as the presidency. This third impeachment, this third different coup attempt, basically, will once again be tossed aside once they find something else, because they can't beat him at the ballot box, so they have to do all these other issues and try to bring up these scandals, which are all based on false innuendos.
Terrie, I'll let you respond, then I have a follow-up. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You want to do a follow-up?
Well, as the person who's leading the Democratic efforts to win Florida in 2020, does that change for you if President Trump isn't on the ballot in 2020? Would you prefer impeachment and then run against somebody else, or you prefer to run against him and because he gives you a better chance of winning?
We're running to win. We're organizing and running to win. And what's the phrase? And I'm probably going to mangle this up. If you've got the facts, pound the facts. If you don't have the facts, pound the law. If you don't have the law, pound the table. Senator Gruters is pounding the table.
No, you guys have no issues. Listen, the Democrats are taking their orders from the Socialist Squad and AOC. That's what this is all about. Do you want President Trump and his leadership, or these far?
No. But to respond to your question, we're going to run strong. We're going to run hard. I think the facts speak for themselves. What's going on in Congress is proceeding. That's not our job. Our job here in the state of Florida for the Florida Democratic Party is to organize and organize to win. That's taken care of. And you can, following the facts, following the law, the process is proceeding. It's pretty clear. There are grounds there. We're going to go through the full process. They're going to come to a conclusion, and we're going to carry on from there.
Wasting the time of the American people, as Congressman Al Green said himself, if we don't impeach him, then Trump is going to win re-election. And that's exactly what's going to happen, because he's not going to get impeached. He won't be removed. Not only that, he will probably win, probably by an absolute landslide across the country in 2020.
On November 4th, we're going to come back to that statement and see if your prediction proves right.
I actually was about to say something like that.
Let's bring it back to Florida for a second, because there's a big issue that's going to decide how many people can vote in 2020, and that is the outcome of Amendment 4. Do you think that we will have a resolution on that, and who qualifies and who does not, by the time we get to the 2020 election? Senator Gruters.
Well, certainly if you were watching the Supreme Court proceedings today, the proponents of Amendment 4 were tongue-tied, because at first they were for the all terms, fines and fees paid, and then today they were against it. It really makes no sense. From a legislative point of view, which as a senator I could also talk about what really happens when we put in the implementing bill, what we're looking at. It's really super simple. What does the term all terms mean? Does it mean all fines and fees are paid before restoration and before these? I'm for redemption. I'm for full restoration of rights. But if you follow the amendment as it was written, it says all terms. And so, yes, I do think it will be resolved. And at the end of the day, a lot of these people a lot of the former felons have been registered. And I don't know if there's any significant advantage the Democrats have had, because, listen, we're winning the voter registration battle this year. Like I said, 20 of the last 35 months we've won. This year we're 15,000 votes ahead.
So if every single person who's a felon, I think the estimate is like 1.2 million.
Where did you get that number?
I don't know. I see it in our stories.
Nobody
does know that.
Nobody knows that. And that's
Nobody does those. That's one of the estimates from Daniel Smith and others.
Something.
Yes, when the amendment was passed, the question is, we got to focus on Amendment 4 voters, right? Because listen, there's a lot of Republican felons, just as there are Democrat felons.
Yes, there are.
Yes, and the key is there is no list of all who the felons are, and they came up with this number 1.2 million. And remember, Andrew Gillum, the failed Democrat candidate, said he was going to spend all of his money registering these Amendment 4 felons, and he was going to register first, I think, 500,000 new voters, and John Morgan got upset at him because he wasn't spending the money. Then he said, okay, 300,000 new registered voters based on the felons. Now I'm going to engage 300,000 voters. Listen, the bottom line is nobody could tell you, because nobody has the exact number. And at the end of the day, we're going to work hard across the state. And like I said, we have a voter registration plan where it's about to go into hyperdrive. We will hopefully we've already cut it in half since 2016. I think we'll either cut it in half or come close to turning this state red, not only for the 2020 cycle, but forever, on behalf of all Floridians, because of this great president.
Chairwoman, on Amendment 4.
On Amendment 4, we want all eligible voters to vote, and all former felons without nonviolent crimes should be able to register to vote in the state of Florida, as they do in most other states around the country. And I think we do agree on that. The surveys and studies show, however, that most of the people who voted for Amendment 4 understood it to be as a condition of the sentencing. When you had a fine to pay or restitution, it was as a condition of sentencing, not court costs, which are tacked on after that. It is almost impossible to track that. And we know, based on testimony from the clerks of the courts, et cetera, that it is almost impossible to track this. This impacts low-income people substantially more than high-income people. High-income people are paid. we're hoping, and I would also add, I agree with our Commissioner of Agriculture, Nikki Fried, who said, let's return to the clemency rules as established by former Governor Charlie Crist. And that is, people are automatically, once they've paid the condition of their sentencing, this is not court fees and court costs, but once they've paid any fines related to or restitution related to the conditions of their sentencing, then their rights are automatically restored. Automatically.
Simple question is, do words matter? And do the words all terms mean all terms or only partial terms? That's where these guys got tongue-tied this morning. I think it's all going to be resolved, and hopefully it will be resolved fairly soon.
Chairwoman, as we look to the nominating contests in Iowa and New Hampshire, we don't vote here until March 17th, and there will be early voting ahead of that, but there will be a lot of voting on March 17th. Are you concerned that Iowa and New Hampshire will nominate someone who can't win in Florida in 2020?
No. The flat answer is no. What's going to happen is we have a long process before that, and people will come out of each of these races differently, different strengths, and whoever the nominee is, and it will be limited by the time we get to Florida. We're 24th. We will vote, our primary is 24th, so there'll be a fewer number than exists now. But whoever comes out is going to have the full backing of the party, and Democrats know that we are going to come together and unite. The candidates have agreed to do that as well. And so this is actually coming down the unity program and unity platform that whoever wins the nomination, everybody is going to support.
Do you have a favorite candidate at this point?
Nope, I love them all.
I guess if you're not going to put it a different way, who do you think is making an intriguing case so far and moving the dialogue and forcing interesting conversations for the party to have?
And I hate to be wishy-washy about this, but different ones at different times have done that. I mean, for example, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Julian Castro, Andrew Yang, they've all, Joe Biden, I'm coming down the line, Cory Booker, each and every one of them speak differently and bring up different issues. And to me, that is a real strength. It shows the strength of the party, the ideas that we have, and that will be presented to the voters to make a choice. And to me, that is significant. All of our candidates are better than theirs.
Senator, is there a candidate that you would like to run against?
It doesn't matter which candidate we run against because they're all following the lead of the Socialist Squad and AOC. They've gone so far to the left, they're out of mainstream America, and they cannot win. So it doesn't matter, Donald Trump, but you can put them all against them. We're going to win every single one of them.
Can I respond to the socialism thing?
Please do.
All right. They have been doing this since the 1930s. Meaning the Republicans.
The policies they're advocating for.
They have been doing this every time there's a policy or a program that's presented. The Republicans scream socialism.
Green New Deal, free health care for all,
Medicare,
for all,
Medicare, Social Security.
All bad.
All right.
We're going to go to your question shortly. I just want to ask one more sort of question because this is, when I talk to both sides, is something that I hear is going to be a very important voter demographic to watch in 2020, and that is what the Hispanic and Latino and Latinx voters decide to do. It's fast growing. Senator Gruters, President Trump has obviously stereotyped Mexican migrants as rapists. He's withheld aid to Puerto Rico, and at one point he claimed the death count from Hurricane Maria was made up, which drew a rebuke from Governor DeSantis and Senator Scott. And his policies have obviously led to child separation at the border and things like that. So given that, what is the case that you can make as a Florida Republican for any person of Hispanic descent to vote for President Trump?
Right now we have one of the lowest unemployment rates for minorities in the history of our country, certainly in the history of our state. And everybody at the end of the day wants to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's what you get when you have a Republican president, a Republican governor, and people want to live the American dream. They're coming here, the legal immigrants. There's a big difference between legal immigration and illegal immigration. Democrats want to give everything away to illegal immigrants, even though we have people that are homeless out here on the streets looking for a few dollars. I think the case with Hispanics and across the board, I think it's the economy, and it's being able to tell them, and that's why, Rick Scott got 45% in the last cycle. I think Republicans are doing better and better. They're not a one-size-fit-all, but most people want law and order, and a lot of the legal immigrants that have come over are voting Republican because you're fleeing some of the socialist policies that these Democrat candidates are pitching today.
So on the flip side of everything I said was true in 2018. Every single person who voted that was a person of a Hispanic knew everything about Donald Trump and the Republican Party in 2018, and yet Florida Republicans did much better with these voters in 2018 than they did virtually anywhere else in the country. Why is that?
Particularly in Miami, where there's a heavy Cuban population.
Correct.
So the vast majority of the Hispanic voters in the Republican Party are the Cubans in Miami. Statewide, it's a different story. And in actual fact, the Hispanic vote was for the Democrats. It wasn't as much as we would have liked. And so therefore, we're working harder. And we're doing increasing outreach to the communities to tell the truth about what this president is and does and stands for. And we know from the polling that among Hispanic voters, the president is way underwater. And the more we get the message out in terms of in actual policies and what this president does to insult people of color, to insult minority communities, and in particular Hispanics, the more that there is this response.
Hispanics love our president because he's been providing a way for them to get better jobs and be better providers for their families.
All right, we're going to get to your questions now, so I thank you everyone who submitted them. I got a handful of them here. So this first one's from Senator Gruters. It's pretty pointed. Do you feel disrespected by Governor DeSantis' treatment of you?
Absolutely not. I'll tell you, the great thing about the Republican Party of Florida and Governor DeSantis, he's America's #1 governor. We are united as a team. It's not only him. For the first time ever, this is where we're light years ahead of the Democrats. For the first time ever, you have the RNC, you have Donald Trump's presidential campaign, and you have the Republican Party of Florida, which includes the president, the governor, and myself. We're all united. We're all working in the same direction. We're streamlined. And we have the best team. We have guys and gals out there in the field working on a daily basis, and it's never happened before in the Republican Party. We're going to build the largest army that anybody has ever seen. We have America's #1 governor. I consider him a friend, and I consider him doing an amazing job. And like I said, I think Ron DeSantis will be the reason why Donald Trump wins Florida in 2020. And yes, everything is good.
Is all well in the Florida Democratic Party? Is all well in the Florida Democratic Party?
It's terrific in the Florida Democratic Party. We're more organized than we've ever been.
The media was talking about them and not you guys, so that press felt pretty good, huh?
Well, taking that with a grain of salt. Yeah.
Because we outraised them 10-1.
Well, here's a question that I want to ask both of you. Do you see the divisions in our country healing, and if so, how? Senator.
Well, unfortunately, in today's society with a 24/7 news cycle and social media, you almost have to. It's used to say some people that are crazy get more attention than others. Now, if you have essentially a toddler throwing a tantrum in an aisle, before that used to get the attention. Now you have 10 kids throwing a tantrum in the aisle, and so one has to get more attention. They have to go more to one side. It's an unfortunate. This is an unfortunate thing with our society that people are going to the fringe, especially on the left. And now their whole party has basically gone way to the left, and it's unfortunate because 80% of the people already know where they're going to vote. And it's with all the social media news cycle, I don't think it's going to get better, but there's one bright spot to all this. If you go to Tallahassee, and if you look at the state legislature, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat, people are respectful, we're cordial to each other, and we work in the best interest of Floridians, and we accomplish a lot.
Chairwoman?
Well, that's good to hear in Tallahassee that there's cordiality, because unfortunately President Trump has created a political climate where unfortunately we have this division, we have these reactions. We have people unfriending others on Facebook. We were unable to meet with and be with people that we've known for years because of the political climate that this president has created. It's going to continue, I believe. I hope it gets better. We all will hope to and work for this. But as long as this president is out there tweeting at 4 o'clock in the morning and insulting everybody in sight, it's going to be difficult.
It's called Trump derangement syndrome.
Yep.
I guess that works both ways. So we're going to have a constitutional amendment perhaps in the ballot addressing assault weapon bans. The results in Virginia, there's been a conversation as to whether or not them not having a special session to address gun safety as they requested, as the governor requested, factored into last night's results. Do you think that question will get on the ballot? And if it does, do you think it will pass? And will it change turnout in any sort of decisive way?
I do believe it will be on the ballot. The ban assault weapons now petition gatherers are working hard and will have already met the first threshold, and we'll see it on the ballot. Do I believe it will make a difference? I do, because the majority of people in the state of Florida believe in responsible gun safety laws. These laws that are being proposed are responsible ones that eliminate assault weapons, eliminate magazines, and require universal background checks. These are reasonable and responsible safety issues that universally, including most Republicans, agree with.
If they were popular, you should be able to pass them through the legislative process. What we've seen in Florida is a system of citizen initiatives being hijacked by the special interests and out-of-state groups. The good thing is the legislature passed a bill to try to clamp down on some of this, because we need to return these amendments back to the citizens themselves. If it's a good enough bill and idea, it should be able to get through the legislative process and not by these special out-of-state groups who are coming in and drop shipping 50 people to collect these signatures outside of post office and everything else. Let's return the process back to the citizens, and let's send these type of issues to the legislature for them to be addressed.
It's only since we've begun to pass these kinds of issues that this has come up as an issue in the legislature, and that they're concerned about it. And most of the ballot amendments that were on the ballot last year were not passed by citizen initiatives, or were not put on by citizen initiatives. They were put on by the Revision Commission, as you know.
The Revision Commission should also be eliminated. I agree with you. Our Constitution should be sacred up in the United States Constitution, and even here in Florida. We shouldn't have pregnant pigs and all these other issues on the ballot in Florida.
Another constitutional amendment that's going to be on the ballot, and I think Democrats are probably going to make this an issue in 2020 as well, and that's minimum wage. Where do you stand on a $15 minimum wage? Senator Gruters, on policy, I guess, in general, do you agree that is there a number that you would agree with, or do you think that the current state level is adequate?
Why stop at 15? Why not go to 50? I mean, really, it's in reality, you can't legislate the economy. If you have a $15 minimum wage, you've seen what has happened in New York and Washington and some of these other states and some of these other local municipalities that have passed these laws. It's literally shut down their cities. People can't hire enough workers. It's unfortunate, but listen, when you have the lowest unemployment in the history, or the last 50 years, it is hard to find workers. And listen, you got to let the market, the minimum wage is designed for younger adults, people entering into the workforce, seniors, part-time jobs. If you're obviously in the workforce and you're doing well, because of the economy and all the options and the couple hundred thousand job openings, if you're productive, you're a good employee, you're going to be able to get a job to do much better for yourself. We shouldn't legislate it. We should let the market forces take over.
So would you abolish it entirely?
I would keep it where it's at.
Chairwoman Rizzo?
We support the $15 minimum wage. We do, and we find that these will increase, that the markets catch up with regard to the minimum wage, and this is the argument that's used every time. Every time the minimum wage goes to be raised, we have the same arguments every single time against raising it. The wage gets raised, market catches up, and then it happens again. So those are the same arguments you use every time.
This is another reader question, and it says 22% of children in the state are living in poverty. I'll take that at the person's word. What is the Republican Party solution to the growing child poverty in the state?
Yeah, great idea. The best thing we could do is provide an atmosphere where we have a world-class education system here in Florida. Our results are much better than most parts of the country. Our numbers we have the #1 university system in the entire country. And the best thing we could do, according to U.S. News and World Report, the best thing we could do is continue to provide the best possible education we can and provide people with opportunities, because the better the economy is, the better of a provider you could be for your family. If there's no jobs, you can't be a good provider for your family. So we have to continue to, and listen, we're so lucky here in Florida with 2 decades of great conservative leadership. Our economy is absolutely humming. People are doing great. And as a result, people are pulling themselves out of poverty. In America, this is the one place where you could start with nothing and literally end up number 1 with hard work, a little bit of luck. But listen, we got to provide as many opportunities as we can. That's how you win.
Chairwoman Rizzo?
Well, after 2 decades of leadership, not everybody's doing that well. Some people are, a lot of people are not. So this is an appalling statistic. Having this many children in poverty is appalling, and for the future, it is something that we must work on and change. We must work on programs. We must work at education as part of it, but we have other programs that help sustain these children and support them so that they grow up as educated adults and capable of learning and living a good life.
This is another sort of off the news, but there was 2 Ukrainians, I think actually one was from Belarus, but who funneled foreign money into elections and have been indicted. They also gave $50,000 to the governor and several other Floridians. They held fundraisers for Governor DeSantis, and initially when this happened, you said, "I don't think he's even taking a picture with them." Well, we found quite a few. So first off, your reaction, I guess, to all this, and I'm curious too, as someone who's involved in fundraising, how do people with that kind of background get that close, get that much access to someone as important as the Republican Party's nominee for the governor?
Well, first and foremost, if you're a candidate for governor, you're going to have tens of thousands of donors, and all these people, you're not going to be able to individually check every single contributor. But the good thing is these guys were caught. They're gonna go to jail, and they should. We should fully prosecute people who are trying to gain influence illegally. And that's the great thing about this whole story, is the system is actually working in this case. And it doesn't matter if you're contributing to Democrats or Republicans. We should all be against foreign influence, especially these out-of-towners. And let me tell you this. As a candidate for governor with 10,000 people, I didn't say, because usually you meet so many people, but think about going into a crowd with 1,000 people or having people on the rope line. Even if you in this case, they gave money to try to gain access. The governor had no relationship with him. There were a couple of pictures with him, but it's completely.
They were listed as VIPs for his inauguration.
It's completely irrelevant because the governor has nothing to do with it. And that's what I mean. The great thing about this whole thing is they are being prosecuted. They should go to jail. It's a non-story. It's unfortunate that people even bring it up. But listen, this happens on both sides, and we need to be aggressive in our efforts to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Should the state investigate what they were trying to achieve? Because there's been stories that they were looking into potentially getting into the marijuana industry here.
Yeah, and the system worked. They didn't get the license, and they're going to jail, and they should go to jail.
You guys have been pretty vocal on this, and you have a pending records request.
Absolutely,
have you received anything
and
yet?
it needs to be fully investigated and fully pursued, and make sure that all the facts come out. We're not sure that all the facts have yet come out, and I think we need to continue those investigations until we know absolutely everything, because this, buying influence is absolutely wrong.
The interesting thing is we had a governor's candidate with 10,000 plus donors who had a couple of donors who were trying to gain influence, and they're going to jail. The Democrats had a nominee for governor that probably would have been walked out of the mansion in handcuffs if he would have been elected. That's the difference.
There is, this is another sort of policy question. Actually, I want to start with Chairwoman Rizzo on it, but can you comment on the toll roads that are currently being debated and that was supported exclusively by construction companies and developers? And a lot of members of the Democratic Party actually voted for this. A lot of Democratic senators actually voted for this against the wishes of environmentalists. And I think I heard from a lot of environmentalists that said with Democrats like these, who needs Republicans? So why do there Democrats in Tallahassee sometimes seem to go along to get along on environmental bills like this?
I think you have to talk to them and ask them specifically as to why they voted for those particular bills. I do know that in general there's some concern that these are in areas that will damage environmental forests, environmental land, and that is a major concern.
I know why they voted for it. because just on my way down from Tallahassee today, I get stuck in all this traffic. I got stuck in Tampa, I got stuck in St. Pete. People are tired of the gridlock, and it's time to open up Florida a little bit. So it's a great, listen, this is going to help transform Florida, take us to the next century. It's going to be really amazing for everybody once they get built.
At the expense of the
How are we doing on time? Are we good? We got 5 minutes? Perfect. Okay. Okay, we got 5 more minutes of reader questions, and I got a lightning round for you.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. So, Senator Gruters, last year you filed a bill to ban smoking on beaches. It didn't go anywhere, but this audience member wants to know if you plan to file it again, and is there anything that people who support it can do to help get it passed?
Well, this is a bill, last year I passed, one of my signature pieces of legislation was getting $18 million for the Red Tide Initiative to go after, listen, we know that man-made pollution contributes to the red tide is naturally occurring. However, the intensification is directly correlated with man-made pollution. So how can we cut that down? We got $18 million for that. And when I was doing some research on red tide and going out to some of these beaches, some of these hardest hit areas, one resident came up to me out of the blue and said, hey, look at all these cigarette butts. And this is what we collected from the last beach cleanup. And to me, it is true. When you go with your family, sit at the beach, put the umbrella up, and somebody smokes, and somebody says, well, there's too much wind. Not all the time. When you get a whiff of that secondhand smoke, to me, it's absolutely disgusting. What's more disgusting is when you put your hand in the sand and feel the cigarette butts, right? It's the #1 collected, most polluted item on beaches. And let me tell you why it's so important. Dr. Beach, for our economy, we do live in a tourism-driven economy. Dr. Beach, the guy who determines what beaches are ranked #1 in this country, in the entire world, consistently, St. Pete Beach, I think, has been #1 twice over the last 10 years. When they get that #1 ranking, tourism skyrockets for that beach. Siesta Key, my beach, has won it a couple of times. And Dr. Beach gives bonus points for beaches that have a no-smoking policy. It's in our economic best interest and to make sure we get all butts off the beach.
I agree with you, Senator Gruters.
Look at that.
I think that's
Bipartisanship.
there we go.
We did it, guys.
And I think that's correct. I think you're entirely correct in your analysis for all the reasons above.
I think I mentioned earlier that even as much as the Republicans have caught up to Democrats in voter registration, and the fastest growing group of voters is NPAs. And there's been a big push for open or semi-open primaries. How many people here would like to see open or semi-open primaries? It's a decent amount. So as the leaders of the parties that, have a say in this, Chairwoman Rizzo, what are your thoughts?
I have always been for same-day registration, which is a semi-open primary. That's considered a semi-open primary. Same-day registration means, and that applies to everybody, it means that you can actually come and register to vote with proof of identification on the day of Election Day. You also can change your registration to a party and vote in the party primary on that day. I have always been for that. When I ran for chair, that was part of my platform, and I still stand for that now. In fact, I think a 29-day registration period is arbitrary. Why do we need 29 days in advance? People should be able to register on the same day and vote. With technology the way it is now, we can verify identifications, and there should be no reason for that. So we are for same-day voter registration and same-day party switching.
Senator?
Well, Chairwoman Rizzo and I both agree that we should not, these two amendments that are being pushed right now, they're both bad. What we as Americans have the right to assimilate as a group, and as a Republican, I should be able to choose my party's nominee with my fellow party members. That's our right. And let me tell you what's going to happen if this doesn't pass. A lot of people don't talk about it. You could still have party primaries. The great thing about the amendment that's in there right now, if it passes, you can still have a party primary in this jungle primary system. But what's going to happen is the parties will end up with all the power, because we're going to decide who each of the nominees are for every race. People don't understand that's what's going to happen. That's what the jungle primary says. You can still have a primary. The state just won't pay for it. So the party will come up with its own rules. The Democrats will come up with their rules. We'll come up with our rules. And for the betterment of Americans, we should keep the system the way it is right now.
So has anyone's opinion changed? Okay. All right, we're going to head to the last piece of this, and that's going to be a little bit of a lightning round to close things out. You guys ready for that? I got some questions, fast answers. Ready? Got the clock going? Go. All right. What's more important, the I-4 corridor, how it swings, or Broward County turnout?
Oh, boy. Both.
No, one. Pick
Oh,
it.
one?
Pick it now. 5, 4, 3, 2.
The I-4.
I would say the I-4.
You're on the I-4, so you better say the I-4. Will Donald Trump be impeached, yes or no?
Yes.
By the House, yes, he won't be removed from office by the Senate. As a matter of fact, I think we'll have 15 Democrat senators vote with us in the Senate.
And there will be several Republicans that go the other way, too.
Interesting. Which city invented the Cuban sandwich?
Havana.
Just leave. The answer's Tampa.
No kidding. You learn something every
Is
day.
Florida the most important state in the 2020 election?
Yes.
For Republicans, it definitely is. We can't win the presidency without winning Florida.
What do you think is the second most important state?
I heard you. Some people said Pennsylvania. That's probably right up there.
Wisconsin's important also.
Do you think they'll be there in the Midwest more than they're in Florida once the nominees are both finalized?
No.
The great thing is the president is now a resident of Florida,
Sure.
and he's a constituent of America's #1 governor in the country. And as a result, we're going to see a lot of them here in Florida. So get ready, Floridians. You're going to see the president every other week. It's going to be awesome.
And believe me, Palm Beach is getting ready to welcome him home.
Ooh, a little tease there. Okay.
I can't wait to make a request to see if we get that the presidential library in your backyard. It's going to be awesome.
I don't know with climate
Because he's
change.
going to retire soon.
Okay, so it's the day before the election. It's the day before the election. Give me something you'll be looking at that you think will indicate which way Florida is going to go. The day before the election, something that you think is going to indicate which way Florida is going to go.
Well, obviously the early voting turnout.
Yeah. Which Florida NFL team will win a Super Bowl first? The Bucs, the Jaguars, or the Dolphins?
Will win the Super Bowl?
The
Will.
Bucs.
The Bucs.
With Jameis Winston as their quarterback. He's still the winner.
Florida State alum here, folks. Terrie? All right, not a football fan.
Yes, I am, but not.
None of those teams.
We're from San Francisco.
Oh, that's right, Giants fan. Or,
No, 49ers.
49ers, okay.
But
If
I
you
love
like San Francisco, vote for the Democrats. If
No,
you like,
no,
if you
no.
like Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you want to vote Republican.
And what I started to say is I love all the Florida teams now.
Will 2020 see the highest turnout of all time?
I think so. I think we're on track for a record, don't you?
I think yes, and my guess is both sides are motivated. Our base is really motivated and energized, unlike we've seen ever in the history of our party. With everybody, 95% of our base and our party supporting the President of the United States, we're going to have massive turnout. We're going to win lots of independents, NPAs, and we're going to have a huge portion of the Democrats, and that's why we're going to run away with this thing.
So how high do we think? 85%?
I think so. I think we're going to be up in the mid-80s for sure,
Wow.
in terms of turnout.
Okay.
And I didn't give a very long answer because I thought this was the lightning round and we were going to be short, but I could have said all that too.
Election night prediction. What's the breakdown in Florida percentage?
Donald Trump wins by 100,000 votes.
That's close.
It's going to be, well, it's definitely going to be close. I mean, Florida is, and I'll give just a little bit of answer here. I mean, we are now a 0.5% state. And so we know the numbers are going to be tight, and that's what we're preparing for. And the Democratic nominee, whoever he or she may be, is going to win.
21.5 million voters in the last two cycles, 10,000 votes and 33,000 votes, top of the ticket. That's why 100,000 votes is realistic.
Yeah, and you know the statistic from Steve Shale. We've talked about this before. Out of the last 6 presidential elections, a total of 51 million cumulative votes have been cast. Out of 6 presidentials, 51 million cumulative votes. The cumulative difference in all 6 elections, cumulatively, is 19,000 votes.
Wow.
19,000.
So make sure you're registered to vote because
And
it's
we're
going to
gonna
make a difference.
Yeah, make sure you're registered to vote and make sure that you vote, obviously.
And get ready for another Donald Trump presidency because we're going to get 4 more years and we're going to keep America great. We appreciate everybody coming out tonight.
Dream on, dream on, and thank you all so much for having us tonight.
Thank you guys
Steve.
very much. Thank you to Senator Gruters, Chairwoman Rizzo for being here. Thank you all for coming out. And make sure you look forward to our coverage at tampabay.com.